When I was living in Oklahoma, I was doing flyers I started doing flyers for bands that like were friends of mine, and people I knew. Like from there, I did a couple of 45 sleeves, and then after I moved out here, I think the first thing that really sort of like a lot of people saw was I started doing artwork for Sympathy for the Record Industry, like record covers and ads and stuff like that. And then the poster thing happened again, sort of by accident, because I met Kozik because he was friends with Long Gone John, and Long Gone John, bought posters from him, and Kozik liked the work that I was doing, and it was his suggestion to do posters. And in fact, the first poster I did was printed at his studio when he was still in Texas. From that, like I set up my own printing facility or whatever, and I for a while I was printing them myself with a partner that was a silkscreen guy, and that sort of, after about a year or two, that sort of fell apart for various reasons. And by that point, Frank had moved up to San Francisco and gotten into partnership with another guy. And so at that point, he said, well, we'll start printing your posters. So I worked with them, with Man's Ruin, for about 2 years. And I did probably the bulk of the posters I did were with Man's Ruin. And then I did Art Rock, published my stuff for about another year after I left Man's Ruin, and then I got fed up with Art Rock because the guy that ran the company was just really hard to deal with. And so at that point, it was a successful enough thing that my wife and I decided, well, we'll just start publishing ourselves again. And also at that point, I quit doing the posters for bands. I just started doing like art prints, and because at that point was when the whole poster scene was really starting to just get huge, and there were like 500 guys that had started doing posters, like all within like a year. But at that point I sort of felt like I'd done about 100 posters, and I said, that's enough, and it's like there's all these other guys, they're doing different stuff. I just kind of felt like what I'd done was sort of played out at that point. And from that, all along I'd been doing painting and doing shows and stuff, and trying to do merchandise and the stickers and t-shirts and stuff. And then into 2003, I guess, I decided I wanted to get serious about fine art again, and that was when I started painting the big 6-foot canvases that I'm doing now. And that's kind of what I'm focusing on now, is that. And I'm still selling merchandise and stuff, but I'm mainly trying to focus on doing the fine art. And I still do commercial jobs if something comes up that it's a job I want to do, basically. Like the image of the devil, the smoking devil with a cigar, that was sort of accidental because my friend Tom Hazelmeyer wanted to start this company to do Zippo lighters, and with artists, doing artwork. And I was like he approached me and like 4 or 5 other people to be the first people to do it. And, we talked about it, and he said, well, why don't you do some kind of a devil, And so I just did that drawing in like 30 minutes, and I, sent it off to him. And then after I did it, I was like, oh, well, I should use this I should do stickers or whatever. And that image just ended up like taking off, and it was like, it's like, that's like my rat fink now, that's like my identifiable thing. When I moved out here in like 88 or 89, when I moved into LA, we lived downtown in a loft on like 20th and Alameda. And this was when Pony Toy was still open at the Yauhan Mall on 3rd Street. Pony Toy was a toy store that was pretty much in the, like when you talk to somebody who lived here in the 80s that's like into this shit, Pony Toy was where that was like their holy fucking cathedral, you know? And they were still open, and I would go in there, and I didn't have any money to spend on anything. I was barely, you know, making the rent. But every now and then I would buy something, and I was just obsessed with all the stuff in there. Because Bondi did a series of Super Robot vinyls that came in window boxes in around that time, and I bought a few of those, like the T28, maybe the Mazinga. And you know, it was one of those things I always was in. I always thought the stuff was awesome, but I just never had the money. At a certain point, I think probably around like maybe 1994, I sort of started buying stuff. I had a little money I could blow on stuff, and I started buying. The first thing I bought was I bought the Shogun Warriors that I had as a kid, like the 3 American ones, as like a nostalgic thing. And then I started from that. I just started sort of buying stuff, and you know, it just sort of snowballed from there. Well, and like you know, it was just one of those things. I was always thought it was really cool, and when I finally got to the point where I kind of had a little money I could blow on it. Well, and also the other big step was I was, for a while, my posters were, Frank started Man's Ruin with a partner, and they were, for a while, were publishing my posters for me. And so they were in San Francisco, I was down here, so what I had to do was about once a month I had to fly up to San Francisco for the day and sign posters for a couple hours. And then I would get a check. And so what happened was I ended up becoming friends with some of the guys who worked at Kimono My House. So what I would do, what I was doing was I was flying into the Oakland airport. I'd fly into the Oakland airport in the morning, take a taxi to San Francisco, sign a bunch of posters, get a check, take another taxi to Kimono My House, buy a bunch of shit, and then like usually they would just like ship it to me or something, and then I would take a taxi back to the Oakland airport and fly home and be done at like, you know, 6 o'clock in the evening. And I was doing that about once a month for like a couple of years. And then about 1997, I went to Japan for the first time, and I just went berserk. And I filled up like 2 or 3 suitcases with toys. I shipped back boxes full of toys. I ended up spending probably $3,000 or $4,000 in one gulp. Oh, and the other, I totally forgot, the best fish story is about, let's see, maybe 1995. There was a store up in the valley called Monsters in Motion that sold like resin kits of, you know, movie monsters and stuff. And we would go in there every now and then. Well, I went in there one day, and there was an entire like 6-foot tall display case full of boxed Coop die-cast. And all the prices on them were just like sick. Like a piece that was like a $200 piece was priced at like $50. And I saw them and I was like, and you know, it's one of those things, it's like, fuck, I can't let anybody else know about this. And so I just fucking cranked my credit card. I bought everything I could. I went back the next day, bought more. I ended up buying like probably about, I would say over 100 pieces, and GA series Popey die-cast, like shit that people will like stab their mothers for, you know. Pretty much most of the stuff in that, I would say probably 90% of the stuff in that cabinet came from that one deal. Like all the vintage stuff in that cabinet came from that deal. And then the rest of it sort of spread out, but yeah, it was a lot of killer stuff. Like, but the sickest thing was all the stuff I bought. The one piece I really wanted was the big Tetsujin that the panels open up and it's got the little robots inside and everything. And so I got the guy's phone number and I called him. I'm like, well, yeah, you know, did you have like a really big blue robot, like the big Gigantor robot? And he's like, oh yeah, but you know, I sold that to a friend like as soon as I decided to sell those. That one was like the first one I sold, and I was like, how much did you sell it for? He's like, oh, I think it was a lot. I think it was like $100. Well, I think probably the big Canagon was I don't know that it was the hardest, but it was the one that if I hadn't just stumbled on it by accident, I waited 2 years on a list to buy one from Japan and never got it. Mm-hmm. And I just stumbled on that one by accident, and I went to, for a while they had a Mandarake open in Torrance, and I used to go down there, and I never really found a whole lot of stuff there, but I just sort of felt obligated to go there because occasionally there would be something cool. And I walked in one day and that was there, and I lost my shit. It was a weekend, and there wasn't a manager or anybody there who could like sell it to me because they just had it for a display. And I was like, give them my name and number. I was like, call me, you've got to get the manager, call me. And like all weekend I was totally like freaked out about it. And then all weekend, and then like the next Monday or Tuesday, I was like, God damn it, I'm going back down there. And I went back down there, and the manager was there, and he hadn't gotten my note, hadn't heard anything about it. And so I was like, I gotta buy this. And he's like, name your price. And he named a price, and I just like, whipped out my credit card, and like, yes. And I was just like, fine, I was like completely freaked out that I got this piece because I wanted it so bad. And I mean, I was friends with the people from M1, and I couldn't fucking get that piece. That's how hard it was. And so I brought it home, and I was just like, oh my God. And I was so happy to get that one. No, because I don't buy, the problem is I don't buy stuff, buy duplicates to trade. And I don't really want to trade stuff that I only have one of, and it does. The other ones, I really love all those M1 vinyls. I just think are beautiful. I think they're really little works of art, and they're done in such limited numbers. And the guy that owns the company, he sits there and paints the fucking eyeballs on each one, and it's just like, it really, to me, those are little works of art. And anytime I see one I don't have, I buy it. I don't care what I don't have a complete collection, but I have a lot of them. Well, I mean, now I'm not really buying so much anymore just because I've just got so many. Mm-hmm. I've got so many that I've got probably a third of my collection is in boxes, and that's just fucking stupid. So I'm kind of real selective, but if I see something that just really grabs me, I'll buy it. For some reason everybody's doing Hedora vinyls right now, and anytime I see a good Hedora vinyl, I gotta buy it just because he's just so retarded looking. I kind of thought about that because I've got a lot of the unpainted M1s, like a lot of their little like surprise package ones or whatever they call them. But because I build models and stuff. I've always built car models since I was a kid. So I know how to do all that stuff, but I just never bothered to because I'd want to get that paint, that cool metallic paint from Japan that they use, and it's just, because I need more aggravation. I like the old style. I like the old style ones, like the Bullmark ones, where they would just, there was some little Japanese lady in a factory with an airbrush, and she would just pick it up and go, and I think those look beautiful. I love that style. That's what I like about the M1s, is that they're done in that style, but they're really perfectly precise. Like, they're much better painted than they ever would have been originally. It's that whole Japanese thing of I love when the Japanese recreate something old, and they make something that's a more perfect recreation than the original would have been, and there's something about that quality, and it's a very Japanese thing because no other culture sort of thinks like that it really appeals to me on a really fundamental level, and they do everything like that. There's a term that I didn't encounter until I started getting into old wristwatches, but it's a Japanese term. It's called wabi-sabi, and it goes back to, there's this whole philosophy behind it. It all goes back to the tea ceremony and the Zen of the tea ceremony. And it's the idea of things that things that are natural and things that are imperfect because they're organic and they're from nature is wabi, and then sabi is the idea of the decay of age and the patina of age, and like an old toy, like I love like finding an old vinyl that the little kid that owned it wrote his name in kanji on the foot. It's like, and you know, serious vinyl guys are like totally won't even look at those because they're not, you know, mint. But to me, I would rather have that than 10 mint ones. I totally, that whole, when I first encountered that phrase and like the explanation of it, it was just like, oh man, that's totally like, I've wanted a word for the way that the things that I like about the stuff I collect, and that's like it, you know? And everything I'm into sort of relates to that, like old vinyl records and you know, old cars, and just that's such a key to kind of figuring out what it was that I'm after when I get obsessed with stuff, you know? Well, I mean, I think the biggest change with the internet, because when I started collecting was before the internet, so I've seen the change. The biggest change is the amount of information that's available. Because when I started collecting, most of the shit, I didn't even know the names of the characters. Most of the dealers I was buying stuff from didn't know names of a lot of, and you'd ask them and they'd go, "Oh, I don't know what this is from. It's, you know, it's a guy with a big spike on his head," you know, that kind of thing. And as soon as the internet, as soon as people started sort of setting up, you know, forums and whatever on the internet, and people started compiling databases, the information level just went through the roof. I mean, the ease of being able to find out about something, it changed like overnight, you know. And I mean, it made a big difference. And I mean, now I think it's probably a lot easier for a collector to get started and to be knowledgeable and to not make stupid mistakes or have like an unscrupulous dealer like bullshit you. Which I mean, I had a lot of things like that where I would get sort of sold a bill of goods, you know, and you know, it takes a while for that learning curve to happen. But now the learning curve, it's, you know, instantaneous. But that's true of any kind of collectible now because of the internet. But it's definitely changed things a lot. I mean, it's completely different because now if you find a piece you don't know what it is, you take a photo of it, you put it up on like on your message board or any, you know, toy message board.